Welcome back, everybody. My name is Michael Dietrich. I'm just a poor boy, and thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to move forward with canvases. Now, I did recommend that you use a standard canvas. This one, I'm not talking about the length and the width. I'm talking about the depth. This is a standard canvas. It is 1.5 to 2 centimeters, or approximately 3/4 of an inch. Now, this is what you probably will use if you're following my series, or a canvas board. It doesn't really matter because those things are pretty much prepped the same way. This is just going to be a little bit cheaper. However, for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to be using a 3D canvas. As you can see here, this is 1.5 inches thick, or 4 centimeters. It's twice as thick as the other, and especially in acrylic art, you usually won't see frames being used because, oh, the sides can be so beautiful, yeah? So this is actually the frame I'm going to be using. Now, I'm prepping this for a double purpose. I'm using this for a commission I'm going to be pouring tonight, so I thought might as well use this canvas. But your canvas doesn't have to be this big. This one is a 40 by 60 centimeter canvas. That is approximately 16 by 24 inches, yeah? For the tutorial, you do not have to go this big at all. I mean, actually 40 centimeters or 16 inches is already pretty big canvas. I find that a 30 by 30, like a 12 by 12 inch, is actually going to be great. But for learning how to prepare our canvas, I'm going to use this one because then I don't have to do twice as much work. Yeah. So we're going to unwrap the canvas first. Always be careful. As the canvas gets bigger, I've already cut this with an X-Acto knife, making sure not to go too deep and cut through the canvas. I'm going to take this off. As your canvases get bigger, this one's got this nice little label attached to it. I actually saved this card because it could be useful for several things, including some swipes. So I'm just going to put that aside. Now, as your canvases get bigger, you might find that there's a support, and as they get even bigger, another across support. And we'll talk about the weight of the paint, because as the canvas gets bigger and the middle gets less taut, your paints can draw towards the center, and they're finding gravity where they can push down, yeah? We're going to talk about preparing the canvas. Now, whether it's a standard or a 3D canvas, we're going to do it exactly the same. And for the canvas board, we're going to do the same, yeah? What we're going to do is we're going to protect the back of our canvas, yeah? Now, for a canvas like this, when we're tilting, you'll do one of two systems, or maybe more. When people pour, they usually have to, because again, this will be turned this way. If I have it on the table, I cannot get my fingers underneath the canvas without touching the sides, and you don't want that. Some artists will elevate them up on cups so they can get it. Some people will add pins to the bottom, or even screws. Some people will place this on a pouring box. We'll talk about that so you can get under it easier. Some people will not even worry about the sides, especially with this, or they'll put it on, like I said, a cookie rack, and then it doesn't really matter. First, before we pin, we're going to tape. The purpose of taping is you don't have to do it. Here's the secret. You don't have to do it. Yeah? It takes time. It's just another expense, even though tape isn't that expensive. But it has one main function, especially when it comes to canvases. Yeah? And when I mean canvases, I don't mean canvas board, canvases. And that is, when you tape your back up and you make it nice and clean, and after it's dry, you take that tape off, you'll have a nice clean back, and your painting will be what's called gallery quality, yeah? Now, galleries want to have a professional look, and I always laugh because no one's going to see the back of your painting. So if this is your first attempt and you're just like starting out, you can even skip the taping if you want, yeah? But in the long run, if you want to sell your works and you want them to be more impressive looking, it's really nice to have gallery quality. So that's why we're going to tape. The one difference between taping the canvases and the canvas boards is this is flat, this is three-dimensional. It's really important when you cover a canvas board that you really make sure there's no space where that paint can get under there. Sometimes I will use a little bit of glue the night before to put it in that crack and really make a seal. Yeah, I'll even use that poster gum, which is what you use to hang up posters on walls without damaging the screw holes, and like jam it into the cracks. Yeah, and then I can always remove it later. But you're going to do the same system with this as you are with this, except yeah, here you're just going to think about the 3D part. So I'm not going to show you this. If you do paper, one of the things that will help your paper from ruffling, people like to put a big tape X on the back. That's just to keep the tautness of your board or your paper. But again, I don't like to deal with paper myself. You can try it, but don't. Yeah, if it rolls up and curls up on you, you're dealing with moisture, so it can happen. Yeah, so I like to avoid that sadness and just skip it. Yeah. Now there's tons of tapes you can use. There's standard masking tape, but even masking tape, I go, look at this. It comes in 3 different thicknesses, and I have it because some of my canvases have thinner borders, so I get different sides. Some people like to use more the painter's masking tape. The advantage to this is oftentimes it's easier to get off, yeah, but it also is less adhesive, I find, than standard masking tape. Now this one is a professional quality, so it's kind of like the best of both worlds, yeah, but I find that masking tape works just fine. Sometimes you might want to do an extra layer, and I'll explain why. Because when I pour, imagine this is upside down, you're watching a camera from underneath. My fingers have a tendency to creep into these inside edges, and then I get paint here as well. If you're smart, you can just balance it on here, but I do a little bit of tape here as well. So I'll be showing you how to do that simply and quickly as well. Yeah. So this first step I'm going to show you is really only if you're concerned about that inner edge like I am. So I'm going to do 2 layers of tape today, and I don't not 2 complete layers, but one is more concerned about covering this inside edge, and the other is for the canvas backside. Yeah. So I have the tape and I have a pair of scissors. I am just going to take this tape where the edge is, and I'm going to place it so it's on the canvas, but it's mostly leaning over towards the inside of the canvas. Yeah, and not too far, because you'll see on the inside of the canvases there's also these indentations, and therefore your canvas keys. If you're not going to use the canvas keys, it doesn't matter. But if you tape over them, then you can't add the canvas keys during the painting if you want to do that. If you're halfway through and go, ooh, I need to add something, it's sagging, it's going to be really unhandy. Yeah. So I make sure that I just go over the edge a little bit. So if I'm looking here, I'm probably going to say that 1/3 of my tape is on the canvas and 2/3 is going over the side or the inside. I'm going to take my scissors here, and this doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to cut it here. Better to cut it a little bit too big than too small, and I'm just going to fold it in, fold it in, fold it in. Now, if you look at this one, you see I actually cut it a little bit short, but it doesn't really matter, because I'm trying to protect this wood on the inside. And honestly, for me, when I'm pouring, I never grab it from the corners. I will always grab it pretty much from the middle of these sides. So even doing the whole thing might be a little bit too much, but better safe than sorry. Yeah. I'm now going to continue and do the other 4 edges the exact same way. Alrighty, so as you can see, I have now done this inside edge. If you look at it from here, you can just see it just gives me this little extra layer of protection for my fingertips. But again, if you are someone who can be a little bit more delicate, I mean, I can, but I like to feel I have complete control. So if you see how I'm holding it now, I'm going to turn it over and I go, oh yeah, my fingers are definitely in there. Now, if I really look at the tips, I can't show you the angle. I haven't gone over this yellow line. Yeah. So you can skip this step and go to the next step. Now, I'm going to use regular masking tape today, but again, not all masking tapes are created equal. They come in different widths. So I look at this one and I go, okay, but when I compare it to the size of the canvas, you go, oh, I'm going to have to do this one twice because it's not wide enough. Well, then I get this one, I go, oh, great. But when I look at this one, I go, oh, it's too deep. This one is not a big a deal because you can go over towards the inside, yeah? So the outside edge should be really on the outside, but this really goes in another almost 1/4 inch, and that's fine. Because again, for me, someone who has the tendency to have their fingers go on the inside, if the width is actually wider than your canvas and it's stretched all the way across, you have this like barrier. Now it might go in a little bit. Now it's definitely going to because it's not stretched across. But if you have this on all 4 sides, it gives you this little extra layer of protection. Now, unless you're, reach in and really grab it, that will do that. But I save this for my canvases with very, very thick edges when my stretchers are wider than this, yeah? But fortunately, there's also this size, which I have, which is almost exactly the size. Now, the funny thing is, it's a little bit short, but because I've done this inside edge, no problem. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the edge of my tape. There it is. And I'm going to cut a straight line across. I want to start with a straight line, yeah? I'm going to start in this corner here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get this corner perfectly lined up with the tape, yeah? I'm going to move it a little bit more towards the middle for you. Now when I place it down here and here, I go, it's perfect. It's not going over the edge. Now I'm going to just stretch, and I'm going to use my finger to coax the tape down, because there are, of course, imperfections in the canvas and the tape, and you want it to get as straight as possible all the way to the edge. Great. As you can see, there's a little yellow here because I said it is a little bit short. Now, we want to get rid of this tape here. I haven't pushed it all the way down yet. I'm going to cut along this line, yeah? I just put my scissors underneath up against the edge of the canvas until I find the corner of the tape and cut across. Now, sometimes, like that one, I just went a little too thick here, so I'm just going to get rid of that extra, as long as it's not hanging over. And don't forget, with the next edge we do here, because I've ensured that this edge is straight, I'm going to do it again, and if there was a short imperfection, it's going to cover it here, yeah? If it's too long, you need to trim it because it will hang over and it might get pressed down and then maybe dry, and later on when you remove the tape, you'll have a white patch, yeah? So we do the same thing in this corner, making sure it's all the way in the corner. It might take you longer than this, but I've been doing this for some time now, and I can get it into the corner pretty fast now. And going across, again, using my finger, coax it down, make sure it's straight all the way across, get to the edge, get my scissors in there. Good. That one I cut a little bit short, except on this end here. So I'm going to trim that off. Great. Yeah. And because I cut it short, my edge is no longer quite straight enough. So I'm going to trim that up real quick. I'm going to do that all the way around all 4 sides of the canvases. Alrighty, so as you can see, I have done all 4 corners, yeah? Now when it comes to this yellow tape here on the inside, if it comes a little loose and stuff, that's fine because it's also held down by this. But I want to make sure to ensure that my canvas remains gallery quality, that my edges are good, yeah? And I mean the outside edges, because that's where the paint could seep. I just take a popsicle stick or a wooden spoon, or you can even use your palette knife if you want to. I find that with wood, I feel like I've got a little bit more control and less danger of it being sharp and cutting into it, and you're going to rub down these edges. Now, my advice is to go in the opposite direction of you taped. The reason why is when I get to this edge here, there's a piece of tape that's on top of this, and if I am rubbing across here, I could pick up this edge of tape. So I think it's smarter. It's, again, no big drama if you do, but it will just ensure that you don't like hit those little speed bumps. So I'm just going to take my spoon, I put my thumb over it, and I'm just really rubbing pretty hard. I mean, I don't want to damage the canvas, and I'm just going a little bit back and forth, and I'm just going to go around all the edges and just make sure that that edge is pushed down flat. And that is a taped canvas. So now, people talk about pinning their canvases. Now, some people don't pin their canvases, and that's because they will either A, put their canvas, and this one's quite big for that, onto a pouring tray. That's, imagine like a plastic container with a couple of dowels on it that you can set on there. I have one here underneath my table that I use sometimes, which allows you to pretty much get under almost every part of your painting, except where those two dowels are. My only problem with that is it does have contact then at that point at those 2 points, and can sometimes, with certain techniques, the paint can kind of like gather there. Not a big deal. It's actually a very, very simple system, and then you can skip this pinning altogether. The other one where you can skip the pinning is really about just elevating it, and there are some products you can order online. These pieces, they're like plastic corners that fit in the corners perfectly. Raise them up, great. But again, if you are trying to learn this art or pour on a budget unnecessary, you can do something very similar with cups, is what a lot of people use. Yeah. So in the four corners, we have these cups, and what we're going to do is we're just going to place them underneath the canvas at the corners, a little bit on the inside, so you can't really see the bottom of the cup, and I can easily get my hand under here. The only problem with this is that when you're tilting, you might get a bunch of paint on your cup, and then that gets sticky. And also when you lift up, sometimes a cup will stick and you go, uh-oh. You have to, and you also have to place it back exactly where it went every time. Yeah. I've seen someone set one down and then boom, it fell. You don't want that either. Yeah. So this is your second option. Your third option is pinning your canvas. Yeah. Now you can use just standard push pins. Yeah. Like these. The problem is, especially for a guy like me, my fingers are fairly thick and it's hard to get my finger underneath the canvas when I'm using these push pins. Yeah. But you can also find at Michael's and on Amazon, you have push pins that are bigger than your average push pin. Yeah. I'm holding it totally wrong to show you. Yeah. And that allows me to get my finger underneath the canvas. Yeah. So I'm going to use these today. I'm going to use 4 of them. I'm so funny when I go to pin these canvases, I always go, I want 4 pins in the same color. Not important at all. Yeah. To do this, I'm going to have my hammer standing by, but I might not need it. But pinning these corners is very, very simple. You are going to put one of these push pins in all 4 corners. That's it. 2 schools of thought on this. One of them says, put them on the inside corner, and then it's not in the way of your fingers, and when you scrape later, it's easier to get to these corners. That's one. Second school of thought is put them close to the outside edge, yeah, so that they're all very, very even on the same corner, on the same ridge, and make sure that they don't stick out over the corner, yeah. Now, I follow that school of thought for one reason. Tape can become loose, and it's terrible to be in the middle of the pour and like put your hands underneath it and realize I've just loosened the tape. You can't really much do anything about it. So one other layer of security I do is by putting these pins closer to the outside corners, I am holding the tape down in the danger zone, yeah, on the outside. Here, if I like run my fingers along here, this tape isn't coming up because I pushed it down. But if I leave this on for a few days and then pour, the temperature and the humidity might have loosened up and suddenly it'll go, oh, look at that tape. It's kind of coming up. Not off completely, but up, and you don't want that. So, two schools of thought. Like I said, you could put them on the inside, you could put them on the outside. I'm going to put them today on the outside. So, as I said, find this, especially on these canvases where the fold is diagonal, it's pretty easy to find where your line is, yeah? And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to make sure that when you push the canvas in, that this square here, this 90-degree angle, that the pin is not hanging over it, yeah? I'll show that to you because I'm just going to push now. And this is high quality. It's got a nice pine that's not too over dry, and it went in very, very easy. With some of the cheaper canvases with cheaper, harder wood, it's a bit of a struggle to get this push pin in. But that went in fine, yeah? And then you just do all four corners. Alrighty, so all four pins are in. Now, I will say this. When I'm working on larger canvases, I might add extra pins, usually on the inside, as I said, just, again, to help support this tape. And when I get to really big canvases where I'm pouring, these push pins, when you are putting weight on them, they cannot take that weight, yeah? So if you're using a huge, like 4x4 canvas, and you've just got these little push pins, you're going to end up bending it off, breaking it off. It's going to come out, and then your corner's going to end up in the corner. So I would then recommend using, I just put in screws, because then I can drill them in, and I can adjust them as I go. You also have these like things that you put under furniture that you can just put under the four corners of like a table, for example, and then you twist them to make them go higher or lower. Again, it's a little bit of an investment. This is going to be more than enough for now, yeah? Let's go to the other side. Now that it's done, you'll see, because it's now raised up, I can get my fingers and go underneath this canvas without touching the sides of the canvas. I don't want to ruin that beautiful paint, yeah? We also do these pins. We want to make sure, and again, I do this right before I pour, but we want to make sure that our canvas is level, yeah? Perfect level. So, I'm just going to measure real quick. Yeah, this is great. Now, the reason why is I put my pins in pretty much right on those exact corners, and I know that my table's level. I built this table myself and made sure it was level. So that helps. If you're pouring at home and you might be like on a dining room table or another surface, you're going to want to make sure that your canvas is level. Now, I want you to hear something. Probably don't hear much of anything. That dull thud, yeah? That's because this canvas right now, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. I'm going to try and put it in a way. If I push it from behind, no, how about from here? Yeah, there we go. You see how much room there is? This canvas is moving a bit, yeah? And when you hit it, it's just this dull sound. It's like a bad trampoline, yeah? You want this to be tight. Now, what we're going to do now, I recommend that you do right before you pour, not now and then let it sit for a few days, because then this will have no effect. Now, I will remind you that in this tutorial series, I am showing you acrylic pouring the way I do it. There are some people that won't agree. There was some people that go, oh, I didn't know that. There's some people who go, absolutely not. You have to find what works for you. And I'm going to teach you what works for me, yeah? So what we're going to talk about now is spraying the canvas. I just have this cheap little spray bottle. You can get one at the dollar store. Make sure it's clean water. Some people go, oh, only distilled water. I've got tap water. 250 canvases, not a problem, yeah? So what we're going to do is we're going to not quite put it on its opposite side, face down, just a little bit of an angle like this, yeah? And all you're going to do is spray the back of your canvas, yeah? Now, some people would watch this already, and some people go, oh, you put on way too much. You know what? It's not even like wet for me, and there's no change. For me, I actually literally will go across several times till I see kind of the canvas changing color. And people going, oh, but it's going to seep through the front. If you've got gesso on here, it will not seep through to the front, okay? That's the whole purpose of gesso, is to seal your canvas, yeah? Now you might see some little bit water running down. I like to make sure it gets underneath my edges, yeah? So it might be some shine on there, yeah. And then just with my hand, spread it around, yeah? Make sure that my corners and edges are done, yeah? Now I have this on a very fine mist as well. I always tilt back as well to make sure if there's any water underneath there. Yeah, great. Spread it around. Tilt, yeah. Just making sure there's no excess. Now I can lay it down real quick. Gonna take a paper towel and just run it alongside my tape, pushing down a little bit because if any moisture got on there or under there, that might come loose. That's the only reason why I do that. And now this is where I stop. Let me show you real quick. Turn it over. Listen to this. Hear that? It's like a drum, a tom-tom, yeah? Now your canvas is taut, yeah? Great. Now, this is what I do, and I would now, right after this, make sure it's level again and pour. Yeah, this is even after I've like mixed my paints to make sure that the bubbles, give it a little time and stuff. I will do this spraying last, yeah, because now as the moisture starts to evaporate, it can loosen up again. Now, here's something that I don't always do. Sometimes I do, but people always talk about this is now they go, oh, you need to dry it. Well, I've done tons without drying it, but I will say you can now take just your hair dryer. You may have one of these if you're going to be learning about the Dutch pour later. You might have a heat gun, which again is not a 100% necessary tool, especially if you have a torch. I like both, yeah? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it again to the inside, just give it a little bit of an angle, and I'm just going to remember when I was spreading that water before, I like to just do that again because then if there's any excess water in one place, and I could see it was here on this side, you spread that out, it's going to make it easier to dry. Some people do the hair dryer, some people swear by the heat gun. The big difference between a hair dryer and a heat gun is, number one, a heat gun is hotter than a hair dryer. So with moving with this slow, methodical speed right now, the heat gun probably would have been too hot. Yeah, you don't want to burn your canvas. No. Second thing is most heat guns maybe just have two speeds, high and low. The force of a hair dryer is much greater than a heat gun. With most heat guns, you don't have enough force to do a Dutch pour. This gives you more. And most heat guns also are just heat. A good hair dryer, especially for Dutch pours, should have at least two temperatures, a hot and a cold, and variable speeds. We'll talk about that down the line. But still, sounds great, yeah? That is now ready for pouring, yeah? So that's it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'm hoping that this is clear. If you are confused, again, put a question in the comment. Please make sure you like and subscribe. I would appreciate that if you've gotten this far in the series, and then move on to the next video, yeah? Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Michael Dietrich, and I'm just a pour boy. See you in the next video.